Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's nice to be with you here tonight, and those of you who are joining us online, it's good to be together for Shabbat. We will begin Shabbat by lighting candles, sanctifying this day on page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. We begin Shabbat with welcoming in the Shabbat messengers. Page 24, we welcome in messengers of peace. Think about ways that we in our own lives can be messengers of peace, healing, compassion.
La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la. Shalom alechem malachei hasharet, malachei elyon, mimelech מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא בואכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה ברכוני לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא צאתכם לשלום מלכי השלום מלכי עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה לה יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה 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 יאללה לה לה.
Continuing Kabbalat Shabbat, we turn back to page 12. At the top of Psalm 95, L'chu Niranana.
Thank you.
13, Yismachu Hashamayim, it's the second paragraph. Even the heavens rejoice.
ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. יירם הים, יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו. 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 ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ.
On page 16, this is Psalm 98. The top of page 16, Zamru Ladonai B'chinor. This is going on the same theme of praising God with all kinds of instruments. This one with all these trumpets and blasts of horns.
זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור, בקול זמרה. זמרו לאדוני בכינור,
And on page 20, L'chadodi, we welcome in the Shabbat presence. This one is the end of Kabbalat Shabbat, L'chadodi, paragraphs 1, 2, 5, and 9. We actually rise to greet the Sabbath presence, the Shabbat presence, at the door on verse 9.
Shabbat, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי בעורף קומי אורי, אורי אורי שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצער, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, הנה שבת תקבלה.
Please take this opportunity, which you're standing, to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. If you want to move around, you can do that. If there's someone that you haven't met before, introduce yourselves. And you may be seated. We continue Shabbat on page 22. Well, really, this is the transition with Mizmor Shir, the Psalm for Shabbat. Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, מזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני ולזמר לשמעו עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון
page 146 is Chetzi Kaddish. We make a transition to the rest of the evening service. 140. It's 145. I don't know what I said before, but it's 145.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברך ירצה וימליך מלכותה בחייך וביום אחד ובחיי תחול בישראל ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמירה במברך לעולם ועל מערמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמר קודשו נעלה מן כל מלאכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה תמירה בעלמא ויאמרו אמן.
Please rise as you're able and body your spirit for Baruch Hu, page 146.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach sha'arim uvitvuna meshana itim umachalif et hazmanim umisader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi lav Umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzavaot shemo. Elchai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבתה תורה ומצוות חוקים משפטים אותנו לימדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד ברוך שם כבוד מלכותך לעולם ועד.
You may be seated, and we continue on page 150.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לעוד על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We worship the power that unites the universe, a promise of harmony for all. Yet that oneness eludes our grasp as imperfection and evil abound. Please join me. Before our eyes, there is a vision of perfection, order, and goodness. There is evil enough to break the heart, and there is good enough to exalt the soul. So when will redemption come? When we grant everyone what we claim for ourselves? Long ago, we escaped the tyranny of Egypt. Our people saw the power of the Most High. We learned God's presence redeems time and event, so we celebrate this power that makes for freedom.
מי כמוך, האלים אדוני, מי כמוך, נעזר בקודש, נורת להילות, עושה פלא. מי כמוך, האלים אדוני, מי כמוך, נעזר בקודש, נורת להילות, עושה פלא. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai. מלכותך ראו בניך חוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זה אלי אנו ואמרו אדוני עמו לעולם ועד Who is like you? ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We come to Hashkivenu. We ask God to spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace, Sukkah, as in the holiday Sukkah, a canopy, a shelter of peace. We ask God to protect us at nighttime, at times when we feel vulnerable and afraid, and at times that we are sick or our loved ones are sick. So we ask God to spread over the shelter of peace over all of us, our going and our coming. We especially ask God to remember for healing, refuah shlema, for these members of our community our family and our friends. Ira Altschuler, Ann Barber, Howard Bregman, Daniel Chen, Fern Diamond, Phyllis Didion, Anna Gitlitz, Ann Fay, Judy Forrest, Ken Franklin, Piers Haggard, Gary Henry, David Mordechai HaKohen, Naum Kaplan, Sylvia Kasparowski, Natalie Klein, Elliot Kramer, Lee Kramer, Albert Lepre, Susan Lother, Hinda Sarabat Chana Pearl, Brian Martino, Nancy McGahan, Jonathan Miller, Edward Mims, Joanne Newman, Till Oster, Caleb Piper, Lev Podorovsky, Naftali Ben Riva, Mike Rosen, Lanny Seed, Adam Schusterman, John Spear, Michael Spate, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student, Carolyn Turner, Colleen Wolfson, Martin Zimmerman. Are there any names? Other names from Mishabach? So we're going to sing Hashki Venu, this nighttime prayer, and have it move right into Ana Elna Rafan Allah. Please, God, heal them.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzitenu uvoenu לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד
Switch gears to Vishamru in acknowledging and celebrating a covenant that we have with God to celebrate Shabbat, Vishamru, at the top of page 154.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Excuse me, bring a little bit of Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco to us with that one. That was composed by Cantor Marcia Addy from Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco. We turn to the Tefillah now, page 155. Please rise as you are able in body or spirit.
Adonai, sifatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו בשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. On page 160, we read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may we all live in such a way that this day fulfills its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Be gracious, Adonai, sorry. Be gracious, Adonai, our God, to your people Israel, and receive our prayers with love. And may our worship always be acceptable to you. Fill us with the knowledge you are near to all who seek you in truth. Let our eyes behold your presence in our midst, in the midst of our people in Zion. Blessed is Adonai, whose presence renews Zion. And on page 163 at the top, for the good in us which calls us to a better life, we give thanks. For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise. For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful. For life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being. For all these things, O Sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai, your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha uchana'eh lahodot. Page 164, pray for peace. Great, big, abundant peace, Shalom Rav, and we follow that with our own silent prayers.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. 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 Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael lechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim le'olam. 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 Tasim le'olam. Tasim le'olam. Baruch atah Adonai hamavarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
This week in the Jewish calendar, we begin the month of Adar. The month of Adar is the month in which we celebrate Purim, and when there's a leap year, which happens 7 times in 19 years or 9 times in 17 years, I can never remember which one, but it happens that when we have a leap month, an entire extra month that's added to the calendar. And this year we have 2 Adars. The reason we do this is that if we didn't do it, we would end up celebrating Passover in December, November. So it keeps the calendar on schedule. If you'll remember, Rosh Hashanah was very early, and now we add this extra month, and so things get back on track. So when there are 2 months of Adar, as there are this year, we celebrate Purim in the second Adar. And there's a tradition to be happy in Adar. I guess when you have 2 Adars, it's to be happy for 2 whole months. This idea of being happy is a teaching that appears in the middle of a sad discussion of the month of Av, actually, in the Talmud. So the month of Av is a month in the summer where on the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, we commemorate all the bad things that happened to the Jewish people historically, the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, various conquests. All of them are put on that day, the 9th of Av. So the Av is a very sad month. And in the Talmud, the conversation about being happy in Adar actually comes out of a discussion of Av. So this is what it is. The Gemara teaches, the Talmud teaches, that when Av enters, it says, when Av enters, we decrease in rejoicing. So it's a sad month. And in fact, there are customs that are connected to Av that are related to customs of mourning. This teaching of as Av enters, we decrease rejoicing is accompanied by this tragic and sort of vivid story about the destruction of the temple. And it's possible that maybe the rabbis were just getting kind of too sad and too dragged down by all of this conversation about destruction. So one of the rabbis says, Mishik niknas Adar barbin besimcha. Well, sure, when Av starts, we get sad, but when the month of Adar begins, we increase our joy. So right in the middle of this conversation, they say, but there's another month, the month which contains Purim, we increase our joy. It's not so much that one is commanded to rejoice for the entire month, but rather that Adar is a happy, lucky time. As one rabbi, Rav Papa, even says, if you must go to court, go during Adar. You have a better chance of winning your case. I think it's just amazingly, beautifully Jewish to make up a way to find joy, to go out of our ways to look for joy. The teaching doesn't tell us to pretend there is no suffering or pain or injustice in the world, because that would be pointless. There is suffering and pain and injustice, and there's also joy and good. So find some joy, they tell us. Find some joy even when you think there isn't any. So with that in mind, I'd like to tell you 2 short stories. They're both from conversations that I had this week. The first was a text conversation I had with my mother, and the second was a real-life conversation I had with a Holocaust survivor who's at the end of her life. So first, the story about my mom. So yesterday, my mom and I were texting and asking each other how we are, knowing that we are both having a rough time, and just check in with each other. And after a few texts, she wrote, as David is my nephew, her grandson, as David says, life is really hard. Actually, she didn't say that, but she said something that I don't really want to say from the Bima. Life is really hard. And I said, well, he's right, but that's only half the story, texting. He's right, but that's only half the story. She says, what's the other half? Now, I don't like to do rabbi stuff with my family because they're just not into it. So I said, Good stuff. What's the other half? Good stuff, I say. And she writes back, you mean wonderful things like Toby? Now, if you don't know who Toby is, you're one of the few people in the world who doesn't know who Toby is. Toby is my magnificent, amazing dog. Toby just makes the world better. So she says, you mean wonderful things like Toby? And I said, exactly. Wonderful things like Toby. Now, the other story happened on Wednesday. I had never met the woman that when I agreed to visit with her. She lives in Squirrel Hill. There's a good reason why we never met, because she calls herself, she says to me when I walk in, well, I'm a non-believer. I'm not very religious. Before Wednesday, she's at the end of her life, she's an older woman, she never sought out a rabbi, Holocaust survivor. Never in her life sought out a rabbi. But on Wednesday, she wanted to talk to a rabbi. And when I got to her house, sat down, the question that she wanted to talk about was, how do I accept what happened to the Jews, she said to me. How do I accept what happened to my family? She and her mother and her sister were the only family members to survive. I look at this beautiful woman who has lived through unspeakable horror, and I really, truly don't know what to say. I can't say, well, God works in mysterious ways, and it's not for us to understand. I'm not going to say that. I don't believe that. I can't say, as we heard in the media this week, it's man's inhumanity to man. I can't say very much, to be honest, because she knows the truth. So I give her what is my best offering. I share with her my belief, my deep core belief, that there is suffering and pain in the world, and some people are evil. That's one. And there is goodness and beauty and gratitude and miracle in this world. I tell her that if we only focus on either the horror or the good, the tragedy or the beauty, we're not seeing everything. Good stuff, as I said to my mom. She said, this is her response to me. She says, I have a beautiful orchid. And she points to this exquisite orchid that I actually hadn't noticed yet, even though it was about 12 inches from me. And I said, you do. You have a beautiful orchid. This month, the month of Adar, we don't pretend that there's no pain and suffering or injustice in the world. We don't pretend that there's not anti-Semitism. We don't pretend that it's okay, that everything is okay, because it's not. And at the same time, there is mystery and beauty and miracle and joy. And it's up to us to look for that. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now in our prayer book to Aleinu, page 282. Please rise in body or spirit as you are able.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטש שמיים ויוסד ארץ ומושב יקרו
Kaddish is on page 294. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and all those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died in the last 30 days. Connie Black, Jean Gershon, Marcia Gomberg, Larry Irwin, Irving Krasnopoler, Fred Rock, Patrice Schur, Carol Wallach, Leonard Zimmerman, also Millie Rogo, whose funeral will be next week. We also remember those who died at the season in years past and whose yahrzeit we observe on this Shabbat: Joseph Brill, Betty Bragg, John Castelli, Morris Chotner, Edward Clayton, Bill Cohen, Norman Cohen, Craig Kudin, Sidney Dubner, Phil Epstein, Leo M. Fisher, Emmanuel Friedberg, David J. Ginsberg, Stanley H. Goldman, Linda Goldstein, Philip Green, Louis Hantman, Joseph Karsh, Vilya Kurdish, Martha K. Labby, Lillian Landsberg Berkowitz, Francine K. Lefkowitz, David N. Lebowitz, Edward Lewis Haber, Dorothy Mallet, Lillian Irene Mervis, Tyba Miller, William Mitchell, Harvey Moen, Betty Yamron Paul, Edward F. Perlman, Jonathan Perrin, J. Gordon Phillips, Alan Polachek, Louis C. Proviano, Sawachara Ratana Banyat, Nancy L. Simon, Edward R. Stillwagon, Gail Teplitz, Zena Usyk, Morton Verbit, Albert Weiss. Any other names for Kaddish?
Ilana Levari.
Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
V'yama divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chaychon v'yamechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. V'gala uvizman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'tadar v'tala v'talal shmei dekudasha berchu. Leila min kol birchata v'sherata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
You may be seated.
Oseh shalom imroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru
just a moment. We will be closing the song the way we came in with a sanctuary song. It's a version of the Torah portion that originally came out of a Christian tradition, but we added some Hebrew to it, or we fitted the Hebrew from this verse into the song. Not you and I, but it was done.
It has been done.
It has been done. Thank you, Luke, for making us sound good and look good and making it possible for people outside of these four walls to be with us tonight and outside of Pittsburgh. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to Dawn and Molly for the great work that we do together. And after the sanctuary song, we'll be inviting Marcus Ost up to the Bima to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi, because tomorrow morning he will become a bar mitzvah right here, surrounded by family and friends. This is just us here tonight, Marcus, but we're all excited about tomorrow to be with you and your family. So, sanctuary song and then Kiddush and Motzi.
Oh Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and in thanksgiving I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kadsho, be'ahava uvratzon chinchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, kihu yom techila, Lemikrai Kodesh, Zecher Letziat Mitzrayim.
Kivanu v'charta, Leotanu kidashta, Mikol ha'amim, B'shabbat kodshecha, Be'ahava uvratzon, Inchaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh, HaShabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
It's grape juice. Hold on. Let's see. Marcus is going to say the blessing over challah, and then we'll have Molly and her expertise cut it, and then we'll have everyone grab some. And I'm sorry, am I making it harder for you? So you're going to say the blessing, and we're going to all get some challah. And as on your way out, please remember to take your books. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Right.
All right?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz.
Amen.
Amen.
Get a first piece. Shabbat Shalom.
Like from the end or from the middle?
Let's have it from the end. Middle.
Right. Let's grab that one right there.
Thank you.
No, you're dismissed.